Hey everybody, Lucas and Beth here from our Liberty House, and today we're just going to kind of go over our seed starting setup. This isn't going to be a super formal how-to, like step-by-step, but just like an overall what our setups look like and some things to think about when we're starting seeds.
We've had many years of failed seed attempts, but this year, I don't know, something clicked and we've had really good success. So really the base of this video is we just wanted to hop on, introduce ourselves to our YouTube family and our seed setup, because most of this has been aired on Instagram. If you follow us there, welcome to YouTube. And for you guys on YouTube, check out our Instagram if you want more behind the scenes and everyday kind of seed things.
Yeah, so things that make for good seed starting is obviously we want to mimic the ideal environment for the seedling, and that's going to be light and heat, really, moisture a little bit with some humidity, but you need light. Whether you have a really good window that gets you 12 hours of sunlight a day, or you have to use artificial lights like we do, you want it like 12 to 18 hours of light a day for the seeds, and you want it close and you want it concentrated, because if you don't, they're going to get leggy and spindly like some of our stuff has. Fail.
Yeah, this is what a leggy seedling looks like, and it's usually something is off with the light, whether it's not enough light and they just grow to the light, or something else is just off.
Yeah, or they're not the light's not close enough to them. But these are kind of what good seedlings look like, and so we've had some good success, and these had really good conditions, and they're almost ready to go in the garden. Some other things to think about is soil. You could use just an everyday potting mix, but that's not the ideal condition. These are tiny little seeds with little baby roots. We want to use like a good seed starting mix that's light and loamy and lets those roots really grow where they want to go. And then you'll up pot eventually into a more traditional mix.
Yeah, so we started this year with Jiffy. I don't know if you want to grab it. The Jiffy starting mix, I think you can find it pretty much at all Home Depots. And we've had really good success with it. So this is what we recommend, just because it's really what we used this year, and everything has looked really good with it. Pretty much the only thing you want to avoid when it comes to the soil is using anything that's been outdoors already, because that could introduce bacteria or disease into your seeds. Seedlings when they grow, and that could stunt their growth or just set them up for failure with that. This is Bruce, by the way. He just wants to be in our video today.
Weirdo. So some other things, you're going to need something to start your seeds in. This is really like dealer's choice, whatever you're into. I've seen people use red Solo cups. I've seen people use styrofoam cups. People just use like trays and then they'll up pot off of that. This is a pretty common thing, these cells. The things with these, if you're going to do really anything other than maybe some flowers, you're going to have to up pot these before you put them in the ground. You're not going to grow a tomato to transplant size in these necessarily, but you could start them in here and then start a ton of them and kind of weed your way down to what you have. You can do what we did and start in these like 4-inch cups, and we still had to up pot our tomatoes because they grew really well, but this is what they would look like. I just guarantee that these are root bound and the roots are actually growing out the bottom, but we just don't have any more room for the big ones. So you can start in these and then up pot, or if you're doing stuff that's shorter, like a 3 to 5 week start, like your squashes and peas and stuff like that, cucumbers, you could start them in these because they'll go right into the garden. So these are some butternut squash we're starting.
Yeah, we decided to just start everything in these 4-inch pots off the bat because we didn't have a space issue necessarily to need to start in the smaller cells. And for us, we didn't want to deal with the initial up pot because that can happen really quickly, especially with your larger or faster growing vegetable varieties like tomatoes. They grow really fast. So we decided to just start with these and had good success with them. And we planted or we use these trays. I don't know, did I grab a tray? It's a 10 by 20 tray, your traditional tray there, and we can fit 14 of those 4-inch cups in each one. And you can see to my right here, we are using an indoor greenhouse. A lot of people have these. They're easy to find and relatively inexpensive. And what we like is they're collapsible at the end of the season, so we can store it away at the end. And really, you can fit 2 of those 10 by 20 trays per shelf. So that's, I can't do the math in my head. That's a lot of seeds for us.
We always like to use a fan in there, especially when the seeds, when the seeds are germinating, we don't do it because we want to keep it warm, humid, and moist in there. But then once they start growing, we rotate a fan in there, and it helps strengthen them to more mimic like a real life environment. You don't want them just to live in this like neutral little vacuum, and then they go outside and they get like a 5-mile-an-hour wind, and you come out and your tomatoes are broken in half.
Yeah, and the fan keeps that humidity moving, I guess you could say, so it doesn't settle necessarily on the soil. That could, you might see like mildew or mold growth on the tops of your soil, and a little bit is fine. But if it's too much, that could cause problems with your seedlings. So that fan is kind of twofold. Yeah.
And then talking more about like the greenhouse setup too is warmth. Seeds need a certain temperature to germinate. Most seeds, greater than 65 degrees is about right. So if you keep your house above 65 degrees and you have a greenhouse like this that's going to keep some moisture in, you're probably fine. You don't need a heat mat. Like that's kind of, people are like either pro heat mat or anti heat mat, or don't think it's necessary. And we've never needed to use them for 99% of the stuff that we can get to germinate without them. But there are certain things like pole beans and bush beans. And then one thing this year was our ground cherries, or our husk cherries. They need like 75 to 85 degrees to germinate. So we actually did buy a heat mat that's not coming out of here, but we'll drop a image in it. All it is a heating pad that's just constant temperature, and we were able to get those ground cherries to finally germinate after a second try. So heat mat's definitely an option, or if you're going to start these like in your garage or like in a cold basement, you're going to need artificial heat because you really need to get above 65 degrees for most stuff.
And most plants too, once they germinate, you can remove that heat mat. Like that's why we don't have that on anymore. We really only used it for a week on one of our cells or one of our trays. And that was just to get them to germinate. And once they germinate, you want to remove that just so they can acclimate to a normal temperature. It's like the first hardening off, so to speak.
Yeah.
In that. The only thing that we still have a heat mat on is our ginger and turmeric tray, just because that likes it warmer, and my turmeric hasn't germinated yet, so that's the only one that's still inside.
So that's like the growing environment. There's like grow lights. We could probably do a whole video on it. You do some research on your own. You should have grow lights. You're gonna have better success. You could start them in a window or with small lights, but I just think if you're going to get into seed starting, if you're going to do the investment of buying seeds, like having good or at least decent grow lights in your greenhouse will up your chances for success.
Yeah, and you'll see in the description below, we'll drop a link. It's going to direct you to our website that has pretty much our entire seed starting set up, where it talks a lot more about the exact lumens and kelvins that you're going to want to look for. But the biggest takeaway is do your research before you buy grow lights. Yeah. A lot of the ones on Amazon say they're good for gardening or plant starting, but then they don't specify how much lumens and Kelvin and the spectrum that it gives off. So just make sure you choose the right one when you're investing.
And there's lights on there that will be listed as grow lights that are good for plant growth. Like if you had indoor plants that maybe just needed some extra light during the winter, or or you need plants that are to flower and form fruit. There's lights that are good for that, but there's different lights you need for seed starting, for healthy foliage and healthy root growth. We don't really care about fruiting
at this point. Yep.
So a few other things.
You want to talk about fertilizer?
This is the first year we've done this. We've had really good success. after everything's germinated and like kind of set up our first like real watering, probably like 2 weeks out, we started using a liquid fertilizer. It's a concentrate, so it's a 1-to-1-to-1 nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, so it's a very neutral fertilizer, and we dilute it, so it's good, and we've had really good success. So you saw our tomatoes, and we'll keep doing this. It's easy. We only water about once a week anyways. So
now that the tomatoes are bigger in those 5-inch pots, as your plants grow, you're gonna see that they need more and more water. So just keep an eye on it. You want to just make sure that topsoil is moist and you don't see any soil like retracting from the edges. That's a sign that it's not getting enough water. But yeah, for us in the 4-inch pots, it was about once a week, and once we moved the tomatoes into the 5-inch pots, it was about twice a week. And
yeah, like
fertilizing
every 5 days or every
once
4
a
days.
week with that cycle.
Warning, if you get into seed starting, you collect seeds.
Yes.
More seeds than you'll ever plant. But that's kind of like the fun, is that you can try new things that aren't at your local nursery, and then that's also addictive because you're like, oh, I want to try this tomato and this pepper.
Heirloom varieties.
So we used to just have them in a shoebox, but this is really nice.
If you follow more than one person about gardening, you're going to see that this method is super, super popular, and we love it. They're actually like photo cases that you can label and organize all of your seedlings. And what's nice about this is if one of those seed packages were to spill, it's contained and just a nice organization.
So everybody, this is like the Instagram craze this year, 2020, 2021. So everybody's probably seen these, but we'll throw our stamp of approval on it. It's helped keep us organized. And I don't buy radishes every time I go to the nursery or something like I used to. So you seed started, you're ready to go, you're ready to get in your garden, and we'll probably do like a full video on like how to transplant, like what you want to do with your tomatoes versus maybe your peppers when you transplant. So check that out on our channel. Make sure you guys subscribe to get notified when we're going to do that, and that'll be coming out shortly after this one. Want to recap kind of like the full seed, like starting kind of overview. So the biggest thing is just note, seeds are designed to grow anywhere. You don't need to invest a whole lot of money to get into seed starting, but there are certain things that are going to set you up for success. So investing in really good grow lights is going to exponentially make your seedlings start better. A decent seed starting mix is always good too. I know there's a lot of people that create their own mix, but if you're new, we don't do that. Just buy one. They're not expensive. And 3, consider up potting right away. Like if you struggle with the up potting in those cells, like for some reason when you up pot from the cell to a 4-inch cup, like something goes wrong, because that happened to us years past. Just skip the cell part of it. Just go straight to a 4-inch cup. 9 times out of 10, you won't even have to up pot, except for maybe your tomatoes and some of your bigger, faster growing varieties. You don't have to up pot into these big ones either. If we would have started later, we could have transplanted directly from the 4-inch ones, and we still will probably give some of those away to family and friends, but they're just gonna be a little root bound, but they'll still survive. They're better than anything you're gonna get at a big box store.
And then consider adding a fan to your setup too. That really helped with the humidity, hardening them off to get them sturdier stems, and just prevent any mildew and mold growth in our setup here.
The fans really helped.
And fertilize. If you haven't added fertilizer to your game, try it out. Let us know if it works for you. It should. Don't
over fertilize. This is, it's not a little's good, more's better. It's just a little's good.
Consistency.
Consistency.
Just get into the routine of it.
Just one light fertilizer once a week, and you can do this. We had our failures and have had some successes in the past, and a really successful year this year. So you can do it. Stick with it, but I think starting yourself up for success early on, getting the right stuff, makes it more fun, obviously, and it'll keep you going in the years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So good luck. If there's good luck, that sounds very ominous.
Yeah. You can do it.
What I'm trying to say is if there's any other topics you want us to cover in seeds, drop it below. We want to know what you guys want to see from us. If you have other questions, again, drop it below. Follow us on Instagram, reach out, become our friends with gardening. We love to see you guys. And have a good gardening season.